Welcome to day 2 of our training. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be a great training. It's a great day. It's a Wednesday, August 28th, and we are back with our Dynamo Leaders Academy launch training. And if you got a chance to join us yesterday, I mentioned that this is part of our launch process. We are giving you as a gift, a leader out there or a business owner, a free training. We are not charging for this training. It is 3 days. We did one yesterday. We have this one today, and we're going to do another one tomorrow for about an hour to 2 hours each. And yes, we want to give you this as a gift, but also to show you what we have in store for your leaders. So take notes, and I believe you have a workbook. I have mine printed over here. If you are in our email list, you must have gotten an email with a workbook. And if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, there's a link for the workbook as well, so you can follow along. Again, my name is Isaac, and I have the privilege of leading you through this training. I live in Kansas City, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I have a training company called Dynamo Methods, and we have a program called Dynamo Leaders Academy, and that's what we are launching this week. I also do professional speaking. I've written 2 books. I'm in the process of writing the 3rd one, and we have 2 more that I'm co-authoring with other people. So tons of stuff that are happening, all for with a goal to add value to you as a leader and many other people that we serve out there. So let's get to the training. I'm going to share my screen. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or even watching on YouTube, feel free to put your questions there or any comments that you might have. So I'm just curious, if you can hear me, please put that on the chat. Sometimes you never know what's going on with the technology. I want to make sure that you can hear me. And then also put in the chat, what is it you are expecting from this training? Again, if you got a chance to join us yesterday, this is a build up to what we covered yesterday, which was very foundational, foundations of leadership. And today is going to be to advance a little bit. We are talking about high performance skills today. And then tomorrow we'll talk about vision and how to execute that vision. So from a purely basic leadership perspective, when you think about either new or aspiring leaders, they have to learn, they need to learn the foundational concepts and principles of leadership. Then when you have someone who is either an emerging leader or a middle manager or a junior executive who has been doing it for a while, or at least they have been trained, then they are a little bit advanced. So that's what we are covering today. And then after that, you go to the higher level, whether you are the business owner, the CEO, the executive, but all these concepts really intertwine. You know, one thing I've learned is that we all need to go back to the basics, and I do that quite a bit. And especially when things are not working, you got to go back to the basics. What are the principles of leadership? What is leadership? Which is just influence. How do you treat people? You communicate with them nicely and kindly, professionally, respectfully, but also firmly. So even the concepts that we covered yesterday, I believe they are very relevant to executives as well. Whatever we are covering today, a little bit more advanced, I think it's relevant for new and aspiring leaders. So let me share my screen, and then we move from there. So again, today we're going to talk about developing high performance skills. Developing high performance skills. About 2 years ago, actually a year and a half ago, we sat down with some of my team members and we asked ourselves, what are we all about? Actually, this came as a result of one of my team members called me on the side, and we were doing a bunch of stuff, really releasing new programs. We were doing leadership development, a little bit of business consulting and coaching here and there. And just abruptly, she called me on the side and she said, what are we all about? And it caught me off guard. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I mean, what do people know us for? And then she said, it seems like our vision is not clear. And she went on and on and on. And initially, I was a little defensive because in my head, I was like, okay, what do you mean it's not clear? We know what our core values are. We know what we are all about. We know what we do. We train, we coach, and I do speaking. We help people. And then she gave me a few examples. And that was it. With that conversation, I said, let me think about it. Let me process this. I'll get back to you. And then it hit me that even though the vision was very clear in my head, it was not clear to this particular team member. And I came to learn with a few other people. They kind of knew what it was. We had worked together on the core values, but it had been about 4 years since the last time we worked on that. So what we did last year in September last year, specifically the 28th of September, we sat down offsite away from our office, and we went through all those things. Okay, what are we all about? What are our core values? What's our purpose? Who do we want to serve? And we narrowed down to several key things. And if you go to our website, dynamomethods.com, you see those core values there. But beyond that, we narrowed down to what is it we want to do. And we said we want to develop high performance leaders so they can build high performance teams. We want to build high performance leaders so they can help high performance teams, because we figured that in almost every company, whether it's a for-profit, and for you to become a high-performance leader, there are some skills you need to develop. There are some attitudes you need to embrace. There's a mindset you need to have. And again, if you joined us yesterday, we talked about high-performance mindset. But again, if you are able to become that high-performance leader, you can't help it but build a high-performance team. So today we're going to talk about developing high-performance skills. Again, it's not exhaustive, but I'm going to give you enough information in a way that you can apply. Again, that's me. I'm not going to go through my intro. The only thing I'm going to mention is that in our company, we have certified trainers, and we get to work with corporations. We get to work with small companies. And for the program that we are launching again this week is geared towards companies that have just a few managers, 2, 3, 4, probably 10. The companies that don't have their own training department, basically we want to impress them enough and influence them to see if they can hire us and outsource their training to us. So I do training and speaking, and it's a fun thing to do. Again, what's your expectation today showing up to this training? If you're going to be here with us, whether it's going to be the whole time, an hour and a half, an hour, 15 minutes, or if you joined us yesterday and you're here today and you're going to be here tomorrow, there must be an expectation. There must be something that you're trying to get from this. Yesterday, someone said that they are looking into ways of building a team. They have one employee who is remote. They have someone who is new as well within their team, and they're trying to develop those people. So that was their hope and their wish that they will get some information and some concepts that can help them with that. So I'm just curious, what is it that you're expecting from this training? All right, so the recap from yesterday, we covered 2 key points. Number 1, high performance mindset. We call it HPM, and how to set clear expectations. We also talked about how to set the expectations, how to clearly communicate those expectations, and how to follow through and hold people accountable. So for today, we're going to talk about advanced high-performance leadership skills. I'm going to share with you some tools on how to enhance your leadership capabilities. Basically, I'll give you some steps, and then I'll have you do some exercises. And again, if you had a chance to download the workbook, you'll be able to follow along. So high-performance leadership skills, there are 3 key high-performance leadership skills. Now, these are not the only skills, but these are the ones I've found that they make a big impact. They have a potential to give you a big jump, especially you as a leader. But the fact that you're a leader, it means you don't have much time. You are responsible for your team's performance, team's development, really attending meetings. And so your time is likely to be stretched out. And that means if you can narrow down to just a few things, think about the big domino. What are those, 3 what are those 3 skills that you can have in a way that if you have them, you can push that big domino and get a big result. Number 1 is emotional intelligence. The first time I came across this concept of leadership, of emotional intelligence, was in 2007. I was at the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg, and I was doing my master's degree, and we had a program. It was more of a human resource program. Even though we were from the engineering department, we were going through, part of my degree was industrial management. So we did a few human resource programs, a few human psychology programs. So in the human resource program, that's when they talked about emotional intelligence. And it was fascinating to me. I didn't pursue it after that. It was just, I did my study, I did my exam, and that was it. But it wasn't until many years later, when I got into business 10 years ago, I realized that emotional intelligence is a key skill that we all need to develop. And I'll show you here in a second the value that it brings to you as a leader and also to the people that you lead. The second skill is strategic thinking, which is key. We say that thinking is a skill that you got to develop, and it's one of the most valuable skills. It's been found that most people don't like to think. We are kind of lazy. We like things easy. We want people to think for us. We want solutions, kind of the microwave way of doing things. But when it comes to leadership, especially when you are either junior executive or an executive, you got to think strategically, and I'll walk you through the process of doing that. And number 3 skill is effective decision making. Yesterday, I mentioned that we face the situations where we got to make decisions, hundreds and hundreds of decisions every single day. From our personal life, from the time we wake up in the morning, you're making decisions. When you get to work, you're making decisions about performance, about your people, about vendors, about customers, about the marketing. If you're an executive or even a manager, you are interacting with the marketing department, the sales, the production, service delivery, customer service, admin and finance, accounting, IT, all those departments. You've got to make decisions big time. Earlier today, I had a coaching session. I do quite a bit of executive coaching, and I had a session with one of the executives from a company here in Kansas City, and we were going through some leadership coaching, and we talked about how you can build your influence as a leader. And what we established is that you need to have influence with the people that you lead and continue increasing that influence so that you can move from telling them what to do to asking them what to do to them doing what they're supposed to do without you having to ask. And that means you're trying to get them to do the things they're supposed to do willingly. And then you keep on rising where you produce results at a very high level. That's high performance results. And then you get to a point where you can develop them. That's called training and development level. And after that, you get all the way to the pinnacle level. So you find that you got to make those decisions. And one of the things this guy said is that I have made a decision to develop one of my employees, and he mentioned the name. I'm not going to tell you the name. Then he said, I've also made a decision to increase my influence with my fellow managers within my company. And it's a good sized company, really, of 100 employees. So those are the 3 key skills that you need to develop. And we're going to go through that one by one. So let's talk about emotional intelligence. And if you're following with the workbook, is a section number 2. So key skill number 1 is emotional intelligence. And the definition of this, the one that I came up with, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions. That's number 1. And then as well as influence the emotions of others. We all like to have an edge over situations. Sometimes we try to have an edge over people, which we shouldn't. And that's why we need to learn how to influence people. So emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions. What drives you? What makes you tick? What really, what makes you mad? What are your pet peeves? What are the hot buttons? What are the things that if someone says, they're gonna tip you off? And then also find a way to recognize other people's emotions and acknowledge those emotions, and to an extent influence them to act in accordance to the way you want. In this case, I'm assuming you have good motives. And as a leader, think about the team that you lead. You're going to have people with different personalities, different education level, different experiences, different backgrounds, and they're going to look at things differently. And especially when you are a new leader to them, and you don't have to be new to the company, but probably you just acquired a new team or you just got a promotion. People are going to treat you with suspicion. They're going to be skeptical based on their experience, or at least the belief they have about leadership. And that means they are going to act based on their emotions towards you. If you can recognize those emotions, let's say someone is a little jaded, a little skeptical, a little cynical, and sometimes their cynicism and skepticism comes out through what they say. You go to a meeting, you say something, and they go like, I don't believe that. Actually, that came up earlier today. I had a conversation with someone, and he said that someone told them the other day, I don't feel like I need to work really hard to improve because nothing has been done for me. The company hasn't done anything for me. And the guy asked him why. And he said, we've done surveys after surveys from the top management. They ask us what we think and we give them feedback, but they never act on it. So what's the point of doing more of these things? And what's the point of trusting you? How do I know you're not going to be also one of those managers that never kept their promises. So you're likely to face an uphill battle. But again, it doesn't mean that you are disadvantaged. It just means you have an opportunity to apply the influence ability that you have, to talk to them, to recognize their emotions, and that's why emotional intelligence is so important. So the importance of emotional intelligence is it is critical for building relationships with your team members and even outside of your company, leading teams and handling stress effectively. Again, all of us, whether you like it or not, we are going to be faced by we are going to face stressful situations. And when that happens, you have a choice, either to lose it and blame everyone, either to be thrown off, or to stay steady, slow down, ask questions, recognize the emotions, make observations, and then you make a decision. It doesn't have to be the best decision. It just needs to be a decision that's good enough to keep you afloat and potentially just get time to consult with other people. Yesterday I mentioned about an advice that was given by one of my former bosses many years ago. Her name is Tammy, and Tammy said, sometimes it's better to make a bad decision than not to make a decision at all. And again, I'm not saying you go on a spree of making bad decisions and risk the company and your team. I'm just saying if you can slow down and observe, you can easily make an objective decision, and emotional intelligence is going to help you do that. So let's talk about the components of emotional intelligence. There are four main components. Number one is self-awareness. And if you're using the workbook, the first point there is self-regulation. So I kind of switch them a little bit. And the reason being, you got to start with yourself. You can't regulate what you're not aware of. So you start with self-awareness, recognizing your own emotions and their impact. And we said you need to know what drives you, what makes you tick, what takes you off, what excites you, what are your pet peeves? Are you a structured person? Do you believe every single person needs to show up on time, or showing 5 minutes before time is being late? There are people still believe in that. I'm that kind of a person. I believe in structure. I believe in getting things done. I believe in following through. And that means if I'm talking to someone who doesn't necessarily believe in that, there's got to be a disconnect. I had a conversation with a sales director who just hired a new employee, and I knew that he was going to do this. He is one of my executive coaching clients, and he said, even though this employee is new, the other day the employee missed 2 meetings, which were scheduled, pre-scheduled, with reminders, including 1 hour before the meeting. They missed those meetings, and so they were asked, according to this executive, the employee told them that I was in a meeting that ran longer than I thought. And after that, I lost track of time and I had to take my lunch, and that's why I didn't show up to the meeting. So, of course, we discussed about it. And what we established was that there's potentially a reason why they are acting this way. Probably this being a new employee to this company, they don't understand the culture of the company. Most likely nobody has really explained to them that when we set up a meeting, it means you need to show up. And that's why we set up these reminders. There's a reason we have those meetings, to communicate information, or at least to discuss something. But also it's possible that they came from an environment that people didn't care much about meetings, or at least they didn't care much about being held accountable. Because when you think about it, someone missed 2 meetings, and then they take lunch. If it was me, based on how I was trained and the way I see things, I would probably give up my lunchtime. Of course, if I'm running late, I'm going to text that person, hey, my meeting is running over. Can I, I'm going to be late, or I'm not going to make it to the meeting. And then I'll forego my lunch so that I can have a meeting with this person. But this new employee decided not to show up to the meeting, and they left for lunch. Now, it doesn't make them bad people. It just means this particular leader has an opportunity to coach them, to talk to them, ask enough questions, and understand where they're coming from. So self-awareness is going to be key, but also understanding, recognizing your emotions and also understanding their impact. Now, I don't believe you are one of those people, but there are so many leaders out there that kind of don't have the ability, or at least they choose not to apply the ability to regulate their emotions, to control their emotions, to think before they talk. They just blast things out. They just say stuff. Think about the impact that you have. Every time you find yourself in a position of power, in this case, being a supervisor, a team leader, project manager, an executive, your position holds a lot of power. Your words carry a lot of weight. So whatever you say is likely to have a big impact, positively or negatively. And that's why you have to be careful what you say. And especially when your emotions are high and you are not very happy or you're mad about something, you got to be very careful. The second component is self-regulation, controlling impulses and thinking before acting. We just talked about that. Now, from a purely psychological perspective, it's almost impossible to think straight when your emotions are high, when you're mad, when you're worked up, okay? Because you feel like you want to fight back, you want to say something, you want to give people a piece of your mind. So if you can, and this is my recommendation, find a way to regulate your emotions in a way that, to be aware of what makes you mad, to know, to be able to recognize when you're getting there, when you're getting upset. Either you step away or you recognize that, and then you decide how you're going to act. Because if you let yourself go off the rails, that's bad for you, that's bad for the team, it's bad for the company. So controlling your impulses and thinking before acting, but better yet, being aware when you're about to lose it. Number 3 is social awareness, understanding others' emotions and perspectives. I don't know about you, but for the time that I've been alive, especially when I got into doing what I do, professional development, um, I've seen way too many people in business circles, in conference rooms, in executive meetings that don't have social awareness. I mean, someone is right in front of you, they are trying to share something and people are bored to death, or they are trying to push a point and people are resisting and they're still pushing it unreasonably. That's lack of social awareness. You need to understand when people are into what you're saying, when they are not into what you're saying, when they are resisting. Sometimes they don't have to say anything. You watch the body language, you watch their demeanor, the way they're acting. And especially if you worked with them for a long time, you know who they are. So in short, step outside of yourself and be okay with slowing down to observe what's happening. And the last component is relationship management. So building positive relationships and managing conflict. I spoke the other day at a conference, and what I shared with this group of people, because again, these are people that are in the corporate world. Most of them had jobs. I think it was just one person who was an entrepreneur, and they believe that the technical skills and knowing how to do the job is what's going to get them to the next level. So the topic that I spoke on was how to build a career that's going to pay off. How to build a career that's going to pay off. And basically, I was sharing about how to develop relevant skills, timely skills, the skills that the company needs, the skills that the industry needs, whichever industry that they're in, the skills that the world needs. And what I shared with them was that from my research and observation is that your success and anybody's success is going to be about 80 to 90% relationships and only 10 to 20% technical skills. So that means for you as a leader, that's good news, because I know you are able to build those relationships. Have a good relationship with your employees, your fellow managers, your fellow leaders, your fellow CEOs, your fellow business owners. I'll share with you 5 levels of leadership that I've taught about so many times. So when there are 5 levels, and some of you might have come up across those levels. Level number 1 is called the position level. And when you become a leader, a supervisor, or a manager for the first time, you start there. And people follow you and listen to you because you have a title. You are called a manager, a supervisor, an executive, a president, a business owner. So they feel like they have to follow you and do what you ask them to do. And the key word on that level is rights. You have the right to tell them what to do. Level number 2 is called permission level. And on the permission level, people follow you because they have a good relationship with you. They like you, you like them, they like your style, they like your vibes. You have a very good working relationship. And it doesn't just happen. You got to build that relationship. You have to understand who they are, their goals, their dreams, what makes them tick. Are they introverted, extroverted? Okay, place them and assign them positions and tasks and projects based on their skill, competence, and also passion, if you can do that. So when you're doing all these things, you're trying to build that relationship. And then you go to the next level, which is the production level. And people follow you because of what you've done for the company, the results that you are facilitating within your team. You are getting good results, high performance results. and the company is happy, your department is happy, your boss is happy, and the world is happy, and everybody is happy because potentially you are getting paid more when you perform at a high level. And then you go to the next level, which I believe that's the game changer for you, which is training and development. And on this level, people are going to follow you because of what you are doing for them. You are developing them, you are mentoring them, you are training them, you are finding resources, you are showing up to a training like this to find to learn concepts and understand perspectives and different ways of leading your people. So when you go back, you'll be able to up your game. And of course, the next level, which is the pinnacle level, is the fifth level, and people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. So those are the 5 levels. And if you can go back to permission level, which is the relationship oriented level, you need to spend a lot of time there because that's going to help you big time to enhance your emotional intelligence. So the question is, how do all these connect? Again, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your own emotions, be aware of your own emotions, understand their impact on other people, but also recognize other people's emotions and also influence them to act the way they should act. In this case, your team members. So all these components, knowing who you are, is going to determine how you're going to communicate with them, and especially under high stress circumstances. Self-regulation, again, regulating yourself, social awareness, and relationship management, they all culminate to help you to enhance your emotional intelligence. So let's do an exercise, and we have that in your workbook. So assess your emotional intelligence. How do you usually respond to stress or challenges? There are 2 extremes. Do you do it very well, or do you do it not well at all? If you do it very well, most likely you either have that natural ability, or you've been trained, or life has taught you that you need to stay calm, cool, calm, and collected. And if you don't handle that well, most likely you haven't been trained yet, and you're still gaining that experience. So how well do you respond to stress or challenges? And then reflect on a time you effectively managed a difficult conversation. Again, this is a subject we get involved so many times because I mentioned that your success is going to be 80 to 90% relationships, 80 to 90% dealing with the people. Now, some of the best things that we have in life come from people. The car that you drive was made by someone. Someone came up with that concept. The phone that you use, the technology you're using right now, someone came up with an idea. So some of the best things we have in life, including our families, they are all people oriented. Now, some of the biggest challenges we have and problems come from people as well. So you got to be ready to deal with people. And one of those ways is managing difficult conversations. Now, my perspective is, you as a leader, you can't avoid that, number one. And then number two, if you can find a way to address problems as they come. You see there's a problem the first time it happens, someone doesn't show up to work on time, they don't do their work, they don't finish their project on time, someone doesn't show up to 2 meetings, you need to address that immediately. If not, not instantly, but immediately. And I mean, whenever you get the next chance, don't push it. Don't give an excuse. Don't say maybe they were sick, maybe they got confused. When you give those excuses, you are basically enabling them to continue doing that. And when you do that the first time it happens, most likely you're going to address it very well because you're not worked up yet. They just did it once. But you can imagine, and I see this a lot, if you don't address it the first time, then they do it again and again and again. 5 times down the road, you are likely to show up one day and say, I'm sick and tired of you. Why do you keep on doing this? And according to you, you always do this. And according to them, I've only done it 5 times. So in your mind is always, which is kind of an exaggeration, but that's the language we use when we are upset. So all this to say, difficult conversations don't have to be difficult, especially when you address them as they come. And then identify one area where you can improve your emotional intelligence. So is it in your self-regulation? Is it self-awareness? Is it building relationships, or is it in their self-awareness, self-regulation, building relationships, all those things, or even your attitude towards other people? Where can you improve on your emotional intelligence? So let's go to the key skill number 2, which is strategic leadership. And the definition of this is the ability to analyze situations from a big picture perspective and plan for long-term success. So that statement is loaded. And again, being able to analyze situations. Now, whatever we mentioned, I get pushback from a few people that go like, I'm not a numbers person. I'm not analytical. I don't like to look at all those charts and stuff. And I'm not saying that you need to have graphs and pie charts and spreadsheets. No, you just need to objectively look at situations to analyze. One of the things we teach is working backwards to identify the cause of the problem, or at least what caused the situation. I just took someone through that today. The person told me that their department doesn't necessarily get along with another department. And I asked him, what do you think is the reason? And it was, you know, the reason being this. Okay, what do you think is causing that? What do you think is causing that? And we went all the way to the bottom, and we realized there's someone who has not been educated on why they are doing all these things. Okay. Now I'm not going to give you the details, because if I do tell you the whole story, probably the person will know I'm talking about them. But the point is, we narrow down on that one piece. Someone has not been explained to them why we are doing what we are doing, and that's why they're giving pushback. And then the pushback goes to someone else and someone else, and it goes to the top. And as leaders, this particular leader, their perception is those people don't like who we are, or they don't like what we do. So analyzing a situation is going to be big for you from a big picture perspective. And it's looking at, how is this situation going to affect my team? Now, of course, it's going to affect you. Sometimes if you've not been trained, or you are a little bit self-absorbed, you are likely to go like, how is this going to affect me? Why are they saying no to me? Why are they not doing what I'm asking them to do? And you take it personal, which to an extent it can be, but try to think in terms of the big picture. How is it affecting my team? How is it affecting our department? How is it affecting the company and the industry? And then plan for long-term success. And planning for long-term success is looking at a situation and ask, do we have a process for solving this problem? Do we have a way of addressing this situation? How often is this situation happening? If it's every single week, I think it makes sense for us to slow down, discuss, collaborate, and come up with a process on how to address it. Do we need to train someone? Do we need to address somebody's attitude? So when you do that, basically you are planning for long-term success, because you are going to minimize the problems and the situations coming up over and over again. The importance of strategic thinking is it helps leaders to anticipate challenges and identify opportunities. And the key thing is to anticipate those challenges. Again, we established yesterday that you are going to face challenges, whether you like it or not. There's a program we teach. I think it's in that we have so many programs. I think it's Developing the Leader Within You. And it says there's no single day where you are not going to have problems on a leader's desk. And if you happen to get to work, or at least start working, and you realize you don't have a single challenge that you need to deal with, it doesn't have to be big, then most likely either you have a very good team, or you're not doing your job, or you're not growing. Because so long as you're growing, you're going to have challenges. So you being able to anticipate challenges, and that means you can prepare for those challenges and then identify opportunities in those challenges. There's always an opportunity. Someone doesn't show up to a meeting, two meetings, and then they look like they're disrespecting you. According to me, the challenge is they didn't show up to the meeting, they're disrespecting me. But the opportunity is now I can sit down with them and coach them and train them and somehow discuss about the company values and where we are going. If someone doesn't get their project done on time and they don't communicate, there could be several reasons. Probably they don't think it's a big deal, because maybe the expectations were not communicated clearly, or they are just used to having someone else pick up their slack and do it. But this time you decide not to do it. It's a chance for you to have a conversation with them and show them the importance of doing this. And most likely, assuming that you have a good team and good team members, most likely next time they'll be able to do it right. So 3 components of strategic thinking. Number 1 is vision, understanding long-term goals. You can only think strategically and objectively if you know where you're going. There's always a vision that you need to have for your team and for your department. If you're just in charge of the team, then your vision is going to be a subset of your department's vision, and then that department's vision is going to be a subset of the company's vision. So make sure that you are in line with the company. I've met way too many leaders who claim, and maybe the claim is true, that they can come up with a better vision than their bosses. They can come up with a better vision than their company, than their CEO, which could be true. But if they are truly team members, and I mean team players, if they are truly team players, they need to bring up those ideas to the executives and the business owners and the CEO so that they can discuss and they all move towards the same direction. So make sure you have a vision, you have a long-term goals, and you understand those goals, and the people in your team understand those goals as well. Number two is analysis, evaluating the current situation and potential challenges. And that's what we covered in the previous point. I'm not going to dwell on that. Then number three is planning, creating actionable. I believe that if you sit down and discuss with your team on the vision and where you want to go and what you want to do, and then you don't come up with an action step for you and for each of your team members, then you just wasted your time, because it's through action that we get results. By all means, you're not going to hit your goals the first time you take action, but at least you'll be moving towards closer towards the goals. When you take action, most likely the first time you're not going to do very well, and then you can regroup and discuss what went well, what did not go well, what need to be modified, and then you move from there. So planning is key. In 20, I believe it was 2020 or 2021, I was asked to speak about I was speaking to a group. I was asked to speak in front of a group of entrepreneurs, and I was asked to speak on the subject of accelerated success. Accelerated success, and I did a little bit of research, reflected on my own journey and my own life as a leader and as an entrepreneur, and I narrowed down to two things. If you really want to succeed at a high level and as fast as possible, there are two factors that are going to determine how successful you're going to be. Number one is your ability to plan very well, coming up with a solid plan. Now, I'm not saying it needs to take months or years for you to come up with a plan. It can take 5 minutes, it can take 10 minutes, it can take a week, but having the ability to plan very well with the long-term goals in mind, that's number one. And then number two is your speed of execution. Your speed of execution, getting to apply immediately. Again, when you apply, you get to test your skills, you get to test your abilities, you're going to get some results, which most likely they're not going to be the results you are expecting. There's going to be a gap. And now you ask yourself, okay, what did I not do right? And then you try to fix that, either gaining new skills or new perspective. But I think the most valuable thing is that you're going to experiment with different things. You're going to apply the concepts and the strategies that you have to weed out the ones that don't work and get them out, and then probably plug in other strategies or just eliminate the ones that you don't need, and you keep a few that are going to be impactful. So your speed of execution is going to be key for you. So let me give you 3 steps on how to develop strategic thinking skills. 3 steps on how to develop strategic thinking abilities. Step number 1 is understanding the context, evaluating internal and external factors. I don't know whether you've ever been in a situation where you communicated something as a leader. It could be in your team meeting, could be in front of the people, of course, that you're leading, or at least you're a part of the team, and someone in the group, they respond, and you find they're way off than what you meant, like really way off, and you're like, where did that come from? In that case, most of the times they just jump onto it without understanding the context, or maybe you did not explain it very well. It's possible for you, especially when you're under stress, for you to make assumptions, for you to jump into conclusions without understanding the context. Let's start from a basic perspective. Someone doesn't get their job done on time, or they don't show up on time. Now, again, if you have done it several times, you are likely to have that attitude that they are always late, or you are likely to feel like they always give me excuses, that there was traffic, my car was not working, it couldn't start, my dog was sick, my cat was something. So you are likely to have an attitude that they always have an excuse, but this time they might have a valid reason. So it doesn't matter how many times you think they have lied to you, how many times they have not told the truth. They always need to be given the benefit of the doubt, because that's what we do as leaders. Now, if they have been doing it for so many times, most likely you as a leader need to take responsibility, and ask yourself, what is it that I have not done that has allowed them to continue doing this? So that's a subject for another day. But in this case, you need to understand the context, and you can only understand the context if you slow down and listen and ask questions, evaluating internal and external factors. Are they struggling because they don't have resources? Are they struggling because they don't understand? Are they struggling because of their attitude? Attitude is going to be internal to them, then everything else is going to be external. Many years ago, and by many I mean about 8 years ago, I did a training, a management training. I can't remember which city it was, but there was about 35 to 40 people there, and we were talking about how managers need to facilitate high performance results, really being able for the team to be able to produce high performance results. And one of the ladies said that there's no way I'm able to do that. And there were about three ladies from the same company. It was a bank, from a local bank, and they said there's no way we can do that because we have the oldest computers you can ever find. These computers are slow, and even though we have targets and we have goals, and some of them is how many customers we are going to serve, how many minutes it takes to serve a customer, how effective we are. They said sometimes our computers freeze when the customer is right in front of us. And since we are not allowed to tell the customer the computer has frozen, we have to restart the computer, kind of hard reboot, push that button as hard as you can, and to restart the computer it takes a few minutes. And sometimes customers get mad because they think we are being slow or we are being inefficient, and they said that's very stressful. Now that's an external factor. If someone is not producing results because they don't have the right tools, then who do you think is responsible of providing that? Guess what? It's you as a leader. And you may not be the one approving the budget, but at least you can influence that. You can facilitate that with your CFO or your finance department or the owner of the company. Step number 2 is to think long term. Consider future implications and possibilities. Again, I mentioned that a lot of people don't like to think, but if you can slow down and think objectively, strategically, and thinking long term, that's a good skill to develop. And also that's a good practice that you need to have on a daily, we need to exercise on a daily basis. Thinking long term, again, is about asking yourself questions. Where do I want to take my team? Where do I want to take my department? Where is the company going? And how can I be a part of that? What's going to be my contribution, and how valuable is that contribution? What skills do I need to sharpen so I can continue being a valuable leader within the company? Um, whose load do I need to lighten up? Whose burden do I need to ease? Who do I need to train? And that's what we do. We always look for opportunities to add value to other people. So thinking long term is going to be a very good step for you to develop strategic thinking abilities. And then number 3 is to collaborate. Engage with others to broaden your perspective. I was talking to a group of students and these are entrepreneur students that we are teaching on public speaking. And one of the things we established was that even though you can read tons of books on public speaking, even if you can read tons of books on presentation and communication, at some point you need someone to mentor you. You need someone to observe you and watch your body language, listen to your tone of voice, get to listen to the words that you're using, look at the impact, look at people's reactions, and give you some kind of feedback. So that's mentorship. And a mentor is someone who has walked through the path that you're trying to work on, who has experience, who has seen it, who has done it, who has been there and they have done it. And obviously, these are professionals that are not going to talk down on you or look down upon you. So collaborating with others is going to be helpful, whether they are going to be mentors or your colleagues as well. We all have different perspectives. You and I can be given a workbook like this, and we can be trained on how to teach on this. And then we get into a class, the same material, same content. We are going to teach differently because we have different stories, different perspectives, different attitudes towards it, different styles. So all this to say, collaborate with other people so that you can broaden your perspective. And that's, again, going to be good for your team and for your company. So let's go through an exercise on strategic thinking. The question is, what is your team's long-term vision? We said again, one of the steps is to think long-term. What is your team's long-term vision? Where do you want to take it? Only you knows what it is. Number two, what are the potential challenges and opportunities? Again, we established that you are going to face challenges. You are going to face problems. But again, there are opportunities that are wrapped in all these challenges. You know, I mentioned that I live in Kansas City, and I've built a good network of friends and professionals here in Kansas City. I've been doing business for 10 years now, running my training company. And one of my friends mentioned to me a few months ago, I think it was probably the beginning of this year, 2024, that, she said, I've watched you grow from when you started out, and I've seen you build your confidence. I've seen you become this kind of a person, and I've seen you become really, really good, get really good at handling people. And one of the things she referenced to was a time that I was speaking in a group. It was about 100 people at a breakfast business meeting. And I started speaking, and 2 minutes into the speaking, someone from the audience was like, "Where are you from?" And and I was like, "Why?" And they were like, "Yeah, because you sound different." Now, it all depends on how you look at it. For me, I don't take offense in that. We have our own way of sounding. But I knew that at that point, as a speaker on stage, and we have over 100 people there, it was my responsibility to make sure nobody felt uncomfortable, including me. So instead of being so self-absorbed, and again, it's from the training that I've gone through and from practicing, I decided very quickly on how to respond. So I told the guy, I'm from down the street. I mentioned this, one of the cities close by here, and this is how we sound. So it's a joke that I made, and people busted into a laughter, and I could tell that they were all eased up a little bit. And I continued with my presentation. When I was done, a lady called Caroline walked up to me and I was like, "I'm so sorry about the guy who asked that question out there. This is not who we are. We have a good organization." And I said, no, it's not a big deal. And as I was talking to Caroline, I saw a guy walking up to me, one of my friends. And he's another gentleman. He's now in his 70s, and he walked up to me. He was smiling, and very quickly I figured he was the one who asked that question. And so he told me, yeah, he did it. And I asked him, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Because I knew you could handle it. I knew that you don't have a problem being put on the spot." Now, that's a good compliment, coming from him. And he's a very successful businessman. All this to say, I didn't know that was going to happen. And potentially that can throw anyone, off big time. Someone asking you, "Where are you from? You sound different. You look different." Again, we get all sensitive based maybe on our race or our tribes or our gender or our affiliation. We get a little bit defensive. But because I understand that every challenge brings an opportunity, and I've been trained and I've practiced, I've been lucky to do that, then I was able to handle that very well. All this to say that there are going to be challenges and opportunities in everything that you face. So what are the potential challenges and opportunities within your team? And the last question is, what steps will you take to achieve this vision? And I mean the vision in number one. Okay, what steps are you going to take to achieve that vision? And we said, if you don't take action, you don't get results. If you don't get results, of course, you're not going to learn, you're not going to know what's good and what's not. And most likely you're going to live in this illusion that you're doing very well, you're highly skilled, but again, you never know. And that's not a place you want to be for long. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We are about to get to the awesome. All right, someone said if you are on time, you are late. That's ada for me. Okay. So we are going to talk about the skill number three, key skill number three, which is effective decision making, and that's again one of the three key skills that you need to have for high performance leadership. So effective decision making. This is the process of making choices that lead to successful outcomes. And again, it's a process. We all have, or we should have, a process for making decisions, especially if these are decisions that somehow you need to make on a regular basis. When you have a process, it becomes very easy for you to execute that and also duplicate yourself. I was having a conversation earlier today, and the person I was talking to, he said that one of the things he wants to do is, and of course, he talked about one particular employee. I want to coach them on how to make decisions the way I make them. Exactly, that's what he said. Actually, said, yeah, I want. He didn't say what coach. He said, I want to tell them, I want to show them how I make my decisions to arrive at this particular outcome. Now, he is in a department that has to be very precise to make those decisions. Otherwise, they would cost the company a lot of money and put the company at risk. And we got discussing about the decision making process. And what I suggested was, first off, I asked him a question: do you have your decision making process documented? Is it written somewhere? And he said no. And I said, how about you write it down, how you make that decision, so that next time when you are teaching this person, you give them a copy, and you have a copy, and you say, I want to walk you through my process of making decisions to arrive at these outcomes. And if you do that, now they can go out there and try on their own using your checklist. Most likely they're not going to get the same results as you, but at least more, it's going to be probably 70 or 80%. Now you can identify where the gaps are, go back and coach them over and over again. And before you know it, they'll be making decisions just like you. Now, every time I talk about a checklist and a regimented way of doing things, in this case, decision making, sometimes I get a pushback and people ask, is that not brainwashing? Is that not telling people what to do? And that's not what we are supposed to do as leaders. To an extent, yes. But when you have a position where you have to be very precise, you got to have a defined way of doing things. Okay, you still want to be nice about it. You want to be very professional, but again, you need to explain and express to people how it's supposed to be done. So think about a surgeon. Okay, today, God forbid, if you are to go to have a surgery, do you want to be operated on by a surgeon who kind of just goes with the flow, who doesn't have their process down, who doesn't have it written down? Do you want, even if you have a surgeon who is really good, do you want a nurse or someone around them who is, the people that are going to assist them with the surgery? Do you want to have someone who doesn't follow processes? Probably not. Okay, so that's why sometimes you have to document. So there's a process of making decisions, especially the big decisions. Others you're just gonna make them on the fly as you go. But again, if you have a specific way of making some decisions, you can easily duplicate in other circumstances as well. And the other part of that is making choices that lead to successful outcomes. I believe all of us have a way of defining our success. Whichever way you define your success, you need to have that in mind. We said you need to have your goals and dreams in your mind, and they need to be very clear. So how does success look like for you? Is it achieving 100% of the goals? Is it 80%? Is it revenue? Is it retention? Is it turnover, in reducing the turnover rate? Is it signups? Is it, being able to do a training like this to the end and get engagement? Whichever way you define success, it needs to be very clear. So when you are making a decision, you need to have that process that you can use so it can lead to successful outcomes. The importance of effective decision making is it is essential for leaders to guide their teams and organizations towards success. I think that's straightforward. So elements of effective decision making. We have 3 of them. Number 1 is data-driven. You need to use relevant information to inform decisions or to make decisions. Again, you don't have to be a numbers person, but data is key. When you make a decision based on how you feel, it's likely to be challenged. And especially when you are a relatively new leader, especially when you don't have much leverage and much influence with the team that you're leading. Now, if you've been leading them for decades and decades, they trust, most likely you have a track record of making good decisions. So whenever you propose a decision, they're likely to go with it. But before then, you got to use data. The other reason I recommend you use data is because the decision is not going to affect just you and your department. It's going to affect potentially the whole company. So if someone else outside of your company or someone who doesn't work with you on a daily basis and they don't even know who you are, can they look at that decision and determine that it's a good decision because it was based on data? So that's key. Number 2 is collaborative. Include stakeholders in the decision-making process. going back to the story I told you about this executive who said, I'm going to tell my team member how to make decisions based on using my process. You can tell them, and most likely they can trust you, but it's better for you to include them, because besides them feeling like you care about them, besides them feeling like they're part of a decision making process, they're also learning how to collaborate with others as well, and that's likely to be duplicated throughout your team. So you are leading by example. And yesterday with the training that we did, we said you need to be a role model. You need to lead by example. You need to do the things that you are expecting your team members to do, and one of them is collaboration. And then number 3 is being timely, making decisions promptly to seize opportunities. It's possible to make very costly decisions, and especially when you wait. We say there's a cost to waiting. Um, Outside of our professional lives, you are likely to pay a big price if you wait. Let's say you don't take care of yourself and you say, I'm going to take care of myself in my later years, then your health is likely to suffer. If you don't take care of your relationships, you ignore them, they are likely to suffer. If you don't coach and train your kids, I have 2 kids, my wife and I, we have 2 kids, and we are working hard, trying the best that we can to teach them the right things. My daughter going like, I want ice cream before she goes to bed. I know that's not a good idea. So as a good parent, I'm going to say, no, that's not a good idea. And, she's going to be mad. But again, if you put something off, it's likely to cost you. Now, bringing it back to the professional circles, if you don't address issues as they come, they're going to become bigger problems. If you don't get developed yourself to become a high performance leader, it's going to cost you, because now you're going to have a big team that you cannot handle and you are likely to quit. I might have told this story. You might have had this story that I've told so many times. My first job right out of college, I was hired as an assistant production manager by a manufacturing company, and I was given 65 people to lead. Bad mistake, a very big mistake, and a very bad one. The company thought I could lead the people because I had a degree. I thought I could because I had a degree, and I was so wrong. Within 2 weeks, I quit that job, and I blamed the company for it because I couldn't keep up with the pressure and the stress. The people were not listening to me. Honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just hanging around. Okay. So the company didn't fire me, so I quit and I went to another company, faced similar problems. Now, I knew that I was not cut for this. I went to school for engineering. I had never been taught on how to lead. And here I am with 65 people that I'm supposed to lead. So I made a decision very quickly, went to another company that did not work. So I decided to go back to engineering. And that's what I did until I moved to the US in 2007. And I got trained on how to lead, how to communicate, and how to influence people. So again, you need to make your decisions very promptly, because if not, they are going to be costly to you. Let me share with you 4 steps on how to make better decisions. And we are almost done. Step number 1 is to gather and analyze data before making the decision. We said your decisions need to be data driven. So gather that data, analyze it before making that decision. Now, some of you probably on a daily basis, you are having conversations with your team members about their performance, about their growth, about their plan and where they are going. And there's likely to be a disconnect towards the end of this year. For most of the companies, they do annual reviews. Some companies do them twice a year. And before you do the review, most of the companies really, they have a form that you send it to the employee electronically or paper form. And then they evaluate themselves, you evaluate them, and you sit down and you get to compare notes and see how things are. Sometimes companies give people a raise based on the score. Sometimes you just come up with a plan. It doesn't matter. But I've also seen people not do a very good job. Actually, last week, but one, I was talking to one of the senior leaders in a company, and she said they have someone who just completed their 1-year anniversary in their company, and they usually do annual reviews based on people's anniversaries. So they don't wait until the end of the year to do it for everyone. And she said, I need some advice on how to do this. And we talked about it. And I asked her, how long do you think it will take for you to do a review? She told me 15 minutes. And I was like, wow, that's a very short time. what can you really discuss in 15 minutes? Because you're going to talk about, you're going to review or and reflect on what the person has done, or at least their progress for the last 1 year. That's going to take probably 10 to 15 minutes. Now you're going to talk about where they're at today, the skills they have, the gaps that they have in their development, and then talk about the future and where they need to go, then come up with a plan on how you're going to develop them. So it needs to take a minimum of an hour if you're really good at what you do and you have a structured way of doing it. So you realize that for you to do an effective annual review and performance review, you need to gather and analyze that information. So, but if you are going to do it for 15 minutes, it's just going to be you checking a box, and that's not what you want to do, because it's bad for you and it's not even professional for you to do that. Step number 2, to evaluate all options and consider the pros and cons. I don't need to teach you on this. You know how to assess situations. In this case, I would say be biased towards you and your team and the company. What are the advantages that you're going to draw from making this decision? You as a leader, what are the advantages that your team is going to draw? And what are the advantages and the benefits that your company is going to draw? And on the flip side, what are the cons if you go through with this particular decision? Number 3 is to involve key stakeholders to gain different perspectives. The best decision to be made is not the one you make by yourself, it's the one that you make in collaboration with other people. Again, they'll give you different perspectives. Most likely they have made a similar decision in the past, so they can give you some insight. And then number 4 is to make the decision and reflect on the outcome. So again, my former boss Tammy said that sometimes making a bad decision is better than not making a decision at all. By all means, I hope you're going to make good decisions, but most likely they're not all going to be great decisions. So you need to make the decision, and which is going to lead to some kind of an outcome, and then you reflect on the outcome. If you need to modify something, you can come up with a plan and get to work modifying that, and that means next time you'll be able to make a better decision. So let's go through an exercise here on decision making. Reflect on a recent decision you made. What was the outcome? So reflect on that and write on your workbook. So what was the decision? How did you go about the decision? What outcome did you get? Did you engage anyone else? Did you collaborate with other people? Did you consult with anyone? And I'm just curious, did you get any backlash as a result of making the decision? And if the answer is yes, what do you think was the reason why you got that backlash? Did you get any resistance? Did you get some kind of credit? Not really credit. Did you get some recognition for making that decision? Because if it's a good decision, someone is going to notice, whether it's your boss or the CEO or someone in the company or customers or the people that you're dealing with. And the reason you need to be aware of all these to know whether you made a good decision or not very good decision is because you want to draw a comparison between the two. If you made a good decision, you want to duplicate that. And if possible, you need to document so that you can do that over and over again and potentially continue improving. If it was not a very good decision, you still need to itemize the process that you followed, identify the gaps, then fix it and keep on modifying until you get a better way of making decisions. The second thing is, what additional information would have improved your decision making? So again, if it was not that good, what additional information would have improved that decision? And the last question is, how can you involve others more effectively in your decision making process? If you happen to be a solo manager in a company, if you are the business owner, you just have the employees there, a few of those. If you are the manager, most likely the owner is there. If you work for a relatively big company, you have fellow managers as well. But you might be the one who is leading your department or your team. So you might feel like you don't need to bother anyone else out there asking them to collaborate with you. And you don't have to. It doesn't have really to be a real collaboration. You just need to ask questions, and you say, hey, I'm trying to do this. If you are in my position, what would you do? I asked that question this morning. I'm about to make a decision on something from a business perspective, and a friend of mine called Kevin, who is really, really good with business, I shared with him what I'm trying to do. Then I asked him, if you are in my position, what would you say? And trust me, he gave me a very good idea. In addition to all the ideas that I had, he gave me one solid idea that I know is going to be a game changer for me. And now I know, I'm going to make that decision, execute that idea, and I have someone that I can go back to and say, hey, this is what I did. These are the results that I got. Do you think these results are good enough? What kind of results did you get for yourself the last time you applied this? So again, collaborating with the people is a very beautiful thing. It saves your time, saves you energy, and you get to get better results. All right, so let's recap what we covered today. We talked about high performance leadership skills. We've talked about um, we talked about emotional intelligence. We talked about strategic thinking, and we talked about strategic decision making. So those are the three key skills that you need to develop for you to perform at a very high level. Again, they are not the only skills, but those are the domino movers. Those are the big ones. Those are the ones that are going to cause that ripple effect to get your team to the next level, to get better results, and also to help you grow as a leader. And we just and we went through some exercises. So we're gonna get to the Q&A, and before we do that, actually, I wanna share with you what we are going to cover tomorrow. Like I said, this is a 3-part training. We did one yesterday. We've just done one. We are doing this one today, and tomorrow we are going to do another one as part of our Dynamo Leaders Academy launch that we are doing. And like I said, with this particular academy, our target is companies that are trying to outsource their training department, or at least the training of their managers, supervisors, leaders, new managers, middle managers. And we have a curriculum that we're going to be taking them through, very affordable. But again, we'll give you those details tomorrow. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to lead with vision to achieve high performance. Again, we said you got to have your goals and your vision very clear, but how do you lead with vision? And it's going to be more on a high level. Think about either business owner, an executive, a senior executive, senior manager, CEO. Those are the things we're going to be talking about tomorrow. But even if you're a new manager, I think it's going to be relevant to you, because again, whatever we teach is very applicable and very simplified. So we're going to talk about strategic leadership for high performance, and also how to create and implement a vision. So I'm going to stop there and take any questions that you might have. I'm going to check in the chat and see if we have any questions. So just give me a second. All right. Yeah, I have a private comment here that came through to me. They're asking how they can get the workbook. We're going to post this on in the on this page. If you're on LinkedIn, we are going to post it there, Facebook as well. And if you are in our email list, you're going to get that as well. So yeah, we'll make sure you have the workbook. It's a 3-part workbook, day 1, day 2, which is today, and then also tomorrow, day 3. So thank you again for joining me for this training. I hope it was helpful. Get out there, apply the concepts that you're learning, and share with us the results that you're getting. You can send us a message on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. We are on Instagram as well. Just search for Isaac Wambua or Dynamo Methods and send us a message. I hope you'll be able to join us tomorrow. It's going to be fun. So have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow.